If you've ever, scrolled through pictures of the Seychelles, those incredible beaches, the granite peaks, you get why it's such an exclusive place to own property.
Absolutely. It's dream territory for many.
But for a long time, foreign ownership of actual homes there, it was pretty much impossible. Locked down tight.
That's right, a complete freeze for foreign buyers wanting residential property.
Well, we've got some massive news coming straight out of Victoria. The government's just announced a really major policy shift. They've essentially lifted that comprehensive ban.
A huge development, really.
So our mission today is to get past the headlines, right? We need to dive deep into the actual details, the fine print.
Hmm.
This is a really targeted look at the official lifting of that moratorium on non-cyclors residential property ownership.
Exactly.
We're going to try and show you the thinking behind it and, maybe more importantly, what you can actually buy now and what it's going to cost.
And what's really fascinating here is how this new policy kind of shows a fundamental tension, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, the previous complete ban, that was purely protectionist. All about preserving the local market, keeping things affordable for Seychelles citizens.
Right, keep foreigners out of the housing market.
Exactly. But this new policy, which the Ministry of Lands and Housing has laid out pretty clearly, it signals a shift. It's like they're trying this extreme balancing act.
Oh.
They want to attract that, very high-end foreign investment, but only if it comes through this extremely narrow channel that completely bypasses the housing needed by local families.
That idea of a narrow funnel is perfect because it's not like the doors are wide open now. It's more like they've installed a really sophisticated filter.
Precisely.
So to really get how big this shift is, we should probably first establish the legal baseline, what was already in place before this recent total ban was even introduced.
Good point. There's a foundational law we need to talk about first.
What was that?
The baseline legal requirement in Seychelles is the Immovable Property Transfer Restriction Act. This is the historical control, the main lever. For decades, this act has basically said that any foreigner, say a non-Seychellois person or company, must get government sanction for any property deal. Residential, commercial, land, anything.
So the government always had a veto power, essentially. They could always say no.
Always. That act was the gatekeeper.
But then, more recently, they went even further than just that act. Even if you could, theoretically, jump through the hoops of that law.
They slammed the door shut completely with the moratorium on residential purchases for non-Seychellois.
Yeah.
It was a total freeze, no exceptions.
A complete stop sign.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, that specific complete moratorium, that's what has just been officially lifted.
Okay, so the total freeze is over.
Yes. But, and this is crucial for potential investors to grasp, you're not going back to some kind of free market. Not at all.
Right.
You're going back to the rules of that foundational Immovable Property Transfer Restriction Act, which is still very much in force.
Okay, so sanction is still needed.
Definitely. But now, layered on top of that act, you have these entirely new and frankly very restrictive criteria that define the specific narrow slice of the market that's now accessible.
That perfectly sets up where we need to go next. The new rules themselves, if the goal is really just attracting high-end investment without messing with local housing.
Then the Ministry of Lands and Housing had to set some really high bars, financially and physically.
Let's start with the money. What are the minimums?
Okay, these thresholds are the real gatekeepers now. They're designed to filter out pretty much everyone except the ultra-wealthy.
Right.
So if you're looking to buy a property that already has a house on it, a finished home, that property has to have a minimum market value of SCR 10 million.
SCR 10 million. Let's pause on that. SCR is Seychelles rupees.
Correct.
So SCR 10 million. What's that roughly in, say, US dollars or euros? It fluctuates, obviously, but...
Yeah, depending on the exchange rate, you're looking at approximately $750,000 US dollars. Maybe around 700,000 euros, give or take.
Wow. Okay, so we are definitely not talking about starter homes or modest villas here.
Not even close.
The clear intention is to anchor this foreign buyer segment firmly in the luxury bracket.
Exactly. That number alone, that SCR 10 million, it immediately shields the vast majority of the Seychelles housing market, where properties sell for, significantly less.
It seems like a deliberate move to attract visible capital, bring in government revenue from the transaction, but without causing inflation in the standard housing stock.
That appears to be the strategy, yes. High value, low volume, targeted impact.
And they didn't just set a high price for existing homes. What about buying bare land to build something new? Presumably they want to stop foreigners just sort of scooping up lots of undeveloped land cheaply.
Absolutely correct. They've thought about that too. If you're looking at bare land, the minimum threshold is set per square meter. It's SCR 4,000 per square meter.
SER 4,000 per square meter.
Yes. This makes sure that even undeveloped plots, which can sometimes be targets for speculation, have to be premium priced from the get-go. It effectively prices out purely speculative buying.
Okay, so high financial hurdles. But the guidelines also get specific about the physical size of the property, don't they? It's not just about price, it's about the actual footprint.
Yes, and this is where I think the policy gets quite strategic, especially for a small island nation that's focused on sustainability.
How so?
The new guidelines are quite precise. Properties generally must fall within a fairly narrow size range, between 2,000 and 4,000 square meters.
2,000 to 4,000 square meters.
Correct. Now, this specific plot limit seems to do two things. First, it stops people buying tiny little plots, perhaps for speculative builds that could strain infrastructure.
Okay.
And second, maybe more importantly, it prevents those huge multi-hectare land grabs, the kind by big resort developers or super wealthy individuals wanting massive private estates that could eat up critical land resources and block future public planning.
That 4,000 square meter cap, though, it seems like it could be quite restrictive for some high net worth buyers. They often want a lot of acreage for privacy, maybe build a compound. Was there any flexibility built in for that?
There was, but it's designed to be narrow. While that 2,000 to 4,000 square meter range is the firm standard,
Right.
exceptions can be considered, but only on a case-by-case basis.
And what would justify an exception?
Typically, it has to be justified by practical necessity. Things like needing extra space specifically for security measures, or perhaps the land itself is oddly shaped because of difficult mountainous terrain.
Ah.
Or maybe genuine privacy needs that just can't be met within that standard limit.
So,
But this is definitely the exception, not the rule. Any request like that would face serious government scrutiny.
got it. But maybe the most telling detail, for me at least, is how they're pricing this whole thing. We're talking about the tax on the transaction itself.
Yes, the government sanction duty.
That duty, the cost of getting that essential government permission, it's actually gone up, hasn't it? From 11% to 12% of the market value.
It has. And that 1 percentage point increase, while it might sound small, it's actually very significant. It's strategic.
Why strategic? Just more revenue.
Well, yes, it's more revenue, but think about where it's coming from. They're focusing entirely on transactions valued at SCR 10 million and up.
Right, the luxury segment only.
Exactly. So on let's say $1 million property, that 1% difference, that's an extra $10,000 straight to the government coffers from a single high-value deal. So this increase, it reinforces the government's focus purely on investors who aren't particularly price sensitive.
Meaning, if you can afford a multi-million-dollar place in the Seychelles anyway?
A 1% tax hike probably isn't going to make or break your decision. It becomes an additional revenue stream tapped directly from the wealthy demographic they're targeting.
So it maximizes the profit from opening up this high-end segment without really affecting the local market dynamics. It's another filter, really.
A filter designed to generate revenue primarily from taxes on the wealthy, yes.
Understanding these massive thresholds, the size limits, the tax hike, it really forces us to ask, what's the explicit goal here from the Ministry of Lands and Housing? We know they want revenue, but how confident are they this structure actually protects local citizens?
Well, according to the Principal Secretary for Lands, who's been quite clear in the official statements,
Yes.
the primary justification given for these measures is safeguarding affordability for Seychelles citizens. That's the line.
Okay.
The belief, or the stated belief, is that by setting such high minimum values and limiting the size, they ensure foreigners are investing in properties that absolutely do not compete with local families for, standard accessible housing.
Trying to create two totally separate real estate economies on the islands.
That seems to be the ambition, two non-overlapping markets.
And they have put in some very concrete, specific, absolute protections for citizens too, right? Things foreign investors just cannot touch. What are those specific no-go zones?
Yes, this is a hard line. Non-Seychelles buyers are strictly, categorically not allowed to buy subsidized state land, period.
Okay, no state land.
Or any housing units that fall under any government housing scheme. Those programs, which are obviously vital for affordable housing for citizens, they remain completely reserved and protected, untouchable for foreign buyers.
That makes sense. But can I push back on that slightly?
Of course.
Okay, reserving state land and subsidized housing is crucial, absolutely. But can the government really insulate the entire private market?
That's the critical question, isn't it?
By bringing in all this high net worth foreign money, even if it's officially ring fenced to only luxury properties,
Mm.
won't there inevitably be upward pressure on construction costs, maybe labor costs, the general price of private non subsidized land around these luxury zones?
That's a very valid point. The policy explicitly aims to protect the local housing stock, particularly the subsidized part. But the knock-on effects on the broader private real estate market, that's harder to control.
Yeah, the sheer gravitational pull of that kind of foreign capital, even in the luxury private market, it seems likely it will be felt across the island somehow.
It almost certainly will.
Yeah.
It's difficult to see how it wouldn't impact things like building material costs, contractor availability, and potentially land values in desirable private areas.
So, a key distinction there. The policy protects state homes, but the wider market effects are maybe less predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, for any potential investor listening, it sounds like lifting the moratorium doesn't actually simplify the bureaucracy much. It just adds another layer of rules to navigate.
That's exactly right. You still have to comply fully with that foundational immovable property transfer restriction act. That hurdle hasn't gone away.
Still need that government sanction.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And beyond that, any purchase still has to comply with all the existing general land use rules, zoning laws, environmental protections, all of that.
Right.
Plus, and this is important, if your plan is to use the property for any kind of tourism-related rental or maybe development,
Like a boutique hotel or luxury villas for rent.
precisely, then you also have to adhere to the very strict Tourism Development Act Regulations 2020. So due diligence across all these regulatory layers is absolutely essential. It's complex.
So, what does this all boil down to for you, the listener, the learner thinking about this? It means the Seychelles has pulled off a highly controlled economic maneuver here.
Yes,
Opportunities do exist, again, for luxury, for premium investment, but you absolutely must be prepared to meet very high financial hurdles.
no question.
And you have to operate within clear, non-negotiable geographical and legal boundaries. Boundaries specifically designed to shield the local housing market from foreign speculation. You know exactly which class of property you must target at the very, very top end.
The ultra-luxury segment.
So, to sum up the core takeaway, yes, the Seychelles market is technically open again to foreign residential buyers. That big policy restriction has been reversed. But that opening is incredibly selective. It's really functioning more like a high-value revenue filter for the government. You've got to be looking at multi-million-dollar homes or paying top dollar for very specific types of land.
And our final reminder on due diligence has to be this. Succeeding in this new market isn't just about having the money. It demands real legal precision.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely must understand all the requirements under that foundational Immovable Property Transfer Restriction Act, which, remember, never went away.
Still key.
And then you have to scrutinize these specific new guidelines, the price floors, the plot sizes. Don't just assume that because the moratorium is lifted, the process is now simple. It's arguably more complex in some ways.
That's a great point. So the final provocative thought we want to leave you with is about the maybe subtle brilliance of that tax increase, the sanction duty going from 11% to 12%.
Yeah, the 1% hike.
Reflect on how it plays a kind of dual role. On the one hand, sure, it provides extra, pretty easy government revenue from these high net worth deals.
Which they clearly want.
But maybe more subtly, doesn't that also serve to reinforce the perception that the Seychelles is deliberately pricing its exclusivity as a true luxury commodity? It really cements the focus purely on the highest end, least price-sensitive investors globally.
It's a fascinating case study in controlled market liberalization, isn't it? Opening a door, but only a very small, very expensive one.